Greetings and welcome to MBA's Seminar 2023. I'm Reverend Darnell Fennell, and I serve as MBA's Director of Social Entrepreneurship.
And my name is Reverend Ashley Mayhem. I serve as MBA's Program Coordinator for Social Entrepreneurship.
And we are happy to have you with us today. Regardless if you join us live right now or you'll be watching us later on in the week, we're glad to be able to be in community with you virtually.
Yep, so this is actually our fourth virtual Sent seminar. Some of you might not know that pre-pandemic, Sent seminar used to be an in-person event, and it was a much smaller crowd. And one of the learnings that we have because of COVID is that we get to widen our audience, and we can get connected with more of you if we meet virtually. So welcome to our fourth year on Zoom, and we're glad that you're here.
And in the spirit of welcome and greeting, we want to provide some words of greeting from our marketing and development team as they offer some words to you all. Perhaps we're still working on getting that video queued up. So in the meantime, as a way of engaging the chat, those of you who are joining us on Facebook Live or any other platform that has a chat, we would love to know where you are joining us this evening. So place in the chat where you are and where you're joining us tonight.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And now we're ready to have words of greeting from our marketing and development team.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is our introduction to NBA and to NBA Ministries. My name is Reverend April Luton. I serve as the Vice President of Development and Marketing at NBA. And with me is my colleague,
Reverend Tamara Chestnut, Associate Vice President of Development for NBA.
We are so glad that you are here, that you're watching this introduction. It's a special week at the NBA. Of course, it is the first week of September, so it means Sent Seminar has started, and we're just so excited. There's so many exciting speakers and sessions that are happening in this month of September. It is also our NBA Giving Week. If you haven't been seeing on our socials or on YouTube new videos, we are about amplifying the amazing work of Disciples Health and Social Service Ministries. We're asking for gifts of support this week, and we're also just raising up the amazing stories that are happening around us. So in addition to raising up those amazing stories, we thought we would introduce NBA to you in a kind of creative way today through some questions that we'll be asking each other. So Tammy, would you like to ask the first question?
Yes, I'll do the first question. Okay, who is NBA?
That's a great question. When someone asks who is NBA, one of the first things we like to acknowledge is that we are a general ministry of the Christian Church, Disciples of Christ. We have been around since 1886. That makes us a little older, around 137 years old. NBA's work is grounded in our historic mission of justice and advocacy, most all of which have a centrality around health and social services. Health and social services is really central to our mission and to our work. Additionally, NBA is supported by the generosity of many donors. As we mentioned, it's NBA Giving Week, and so many individuals, so many church communities give and support this work. We're also a beneficiary of Disciples Mission Fund, which is our Disciples Common Mission Fund. And we're so thankful for all these many ways that NBA is supported.
Okay.
Oh, my turn.
Yeah.
Let's see. Tammy, your question is, if someone wants to know more about MBA or any of our programs, what should they do?
There are about 4 or 5 ways to really connect with us, and we really want to invite you to come alongside us. First of all, you can always visit our website, mbacares.org. You'll be able to learn about all of our programs, all of our initiatives. You'll get to meet our staff, our board of trustees, find out who we are. Secondly, you can always email us. Email us your questions, your revisions, anything you want to learn about us. Email us at mba@mbacares.org. And if you are listening to this as a SENT attendee, we welcome you and we encourage you, of course, to reach out to our colleagues, Reverend Ashley Mayhem and Reverend Darnell Fennell. They definitely want your questions, ideas, hopes, and bold visions. And then you can always follow us on our socials. There's so much to learn. We're on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, and we're on YouTube. And April, I have a little fun fact. There are over 85 videos related to social entrepreneurship on the YouTube channel. So be sure to check us out. Okay. April, are you ready for your question? I have one for you. Okay.
Yes.
Let's see. Here we go. What is MBA known for?
Ooh. What is MBA known for? Well, I would say first and foremost, resources, right? As SENT seminar attendees, you know that the tools, the resources, and the support, especially for social entrepreneurs, but for leadership development, for organizational support, we have an abundance of tools and resources available not only on our website, but through our many programs. I would also say that MBA is known for meeting community needs. As we mentioned earlier, through health and social services, we are addressing many community needs, whether that be around advocacy for prison and jail ministries, whether it be for mental health and wellness. We are addressing community needs while advancing equity and addressing especially systemic issues of race and racism. We are also known for a characteristic of strong hospitality. Come to one of our meetings or events, and you will always, pretty much always, have food, snacks, or beverages, and maybe even some gifts.
Sounds good.
Oh, Tammy, this is a good question. With reference to MBA's bold vision, what is our bold vision for attendees of this month's SENT seminar?
Our bold vision first is that you know our bold vision at MBA, which is to really empower leaders. We want you to be empowered, and we want you to become innovative, effective social enterprises. You know, we believe in you being prophetic and leading in and doing the work as we all work towards liberated community and really creating a more just world. So we really want to lean in that. We are building the future of the church. And as the SENT attendees, we know that you are working towards that as well. And in relations to SENT, we hope that these next few sessions really help provide you the tools to create transformative stories that really help you amplify your bold visions. I know that you're focusing on stories this week, and we want to ensure that you receive the support that you need. Okay, one last question. April, you ready?
I think so.
April, what is a word of blessing that we would like to offer for the SENT seminar this month?
Absolutely. A word of blessing is encouragement, is brave space and courage, and the ability to take in all of the tools and recommendations that are going to be offered in these many sessions. I mean, I think that the blessing really is to offer each of you all as attendees the space and the opportunity to learn what you can so that we can help strengthen the work and the ministries that you do. And we're so excited, especially for social entrepreneurship and the innovative work and ministry that is happening. We know that there's a lot that is happening in the world and in the ways that your ministries are having an impact. And we hope that these next few sessions will be as much of a blessing that you are a blessing in your communities. On that note, thank you so much. We hope that this little intro helped you get to know MBA a little bit more, as well as Tammy and I. And we look forward to seeing you on our socials, seeing you in our email, and seeing you along the way. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you to our marketing and development team for helping you to get to know more about MBA. Speaking of getting to know more, we want to know more about a term that we often use in this area, which is the term social entrepreneurship. For some, that term is familiar, and for others, it's new or perhaps question marks around what it really means. So how we define that term here in our program area is an entity that exists in order to solve a social issue. The entity's primary existence is birthed out of the cries of God's people, the concerns of God's people, and because of that, entrepreneurs began to form a nonprofit social enterprise in order to respond to those needs. This is not an entity that's created in order just to generate extra funds for our church or any other thing. The primary focus is we have heard the cries of God's people and we are concerned about that. And that concern leads us to respond through creating a social enterprise.
Yeah, we often use the phrase faith-rooted social impact. And as Darnell was saying, this is a faithful response. It's something that our faith compels us to do in the same way that Moses hears that God is responding to the cries of God's people, that we in turn are inspired and compelled to move because of our faith, and our faith informs that. And with that, it's not just that we're treating the symptom or the entity isn't just looking to, slap a Band-Aid on a social issue or a social need, but we're also looking at the systems that are in place and asking questions and coming up with strategies that will help us to dismantle those systems that are in place that perpetuate that need in the first place.
This year's theme is entitled Changing the Narrative, the Power of Storytelling. So often we have these seminars and we have such great speakers, great virtual seminars that we're able to provide for you a download of information that sometimes can be a bit overwhelming. This year, we wanted to kind of slow things down and recognize that we often learn through story. The story has a way of transforming us by being able to hear the lived and real experiences of people around us. And those stories give us inspiration, they give us wisdom, even give us caution. We are story people. As people of faith, we gather each week often around stories that we lift up and commune around in order to hear God speak. So we hope that in the power of storytelling from all the presenters, that you will also find a sense of inspiration and hope for what may be possible for you.
Yeah, and as people of faith, we also recognize that our stories and our lives are in essence sacred texts. And so our hope is that Spirit would be alive and that you would be sensitive to Spirit's nudging in your context, and that you would walk away feeling inspired to imagine how you might be able to respond to the cries of God's people in your context and in your world. And so we hope that in the workshops that you viewed possibly earlier this week or maybe later today, later this week, and for the rest of the month, we hope that you keep in mind that these are not prescriptions of how you must or ought to go into the world and do this work, but rather that this is an invitation to imagine and bear witness to the descriptions. These are, stories of people in their context that are doing important work that they feel God is calling them to do. And so we hope that you hear their stories, you keep them in mind and heart as a sacred text, and that you would be inspired to explore what it might look like for you to respond.
You've heard from our colleagues in the words of greeting, the importance of NBA's work and NBA's bold visions. And while NBA has a bold vision, we also support others who have bold visions. And on this call this evening, we are joined by a few of our Sent 2023 cohort members, and they have bold visions. They have stories to tell, and we want to be able to make space for them to be able to share their stories, share their struggles, and share their work with you all. So I want to invite or introduce rather a few of our cohort members. We have cohort members from 2023 as well as one from 2022. So I'll start with 2022. We have Jasmine, who is the leader of Plants on Plates. And then from this year, we have Kenzie Tate from Restore Clergy. We have Whitney Marie from Come As You Are Collective. We have Sharizna Jean-Marie from Co-Conspirator Institute. And these are just a few of folks who are part of our network who are embodying and living into bold visions. So we welcome them and we look forward to engaging them in a time of conversation and reflection and storytelling.
And to kind of give them an opportunity to speak more about their background and the journey, the entry into their journey of their bold vision. I just want to invite you each to name, we'll do some rapid fire here, who you were before you became a social entrepreneur. What's the narrative that you're trying to change, or what compelled and when compelled you to change it? And then what is your bold vision for your work now in your social enterprise? And so
and I would just, because I want to make sure since we have rapid fire, that the question of who you were before you became a social entrepreneur, take your time with that, because it's important for us to know the story before, because they see who you are now.
Mm-hmm.
What is the story that has brought you to this moment?
Mm-hmm. We can popcorn it. I can volunteer someone.
Well, let's start with Jasmine.
Oh, darnell. I surely did not want to go first, but here I am. Who I was before social entrepreneurship, I worked in retail, communications background, switched to marketing, did a lot of volunteer work, and that's what kind of sparked my interest into owning my own business. So that's when I started Plants on Plates. I was more of a connector in the community. I allowed small businesses to come together, fellowship, sell their products, food demonstrations, cooking classes, but it still wasn't enough. I wanted to do a little bit more. So when I was presented the opportunity to apply for the cohort, the 2022 cohort, I knew that was something that could really fine tune what I was looking to do. And so started the nonprofit 2022. And now I'm solely focused working on families in the inner city population where they're experiencing a food desert. So I feel like that's my bigger why, my narrative that I'm looking to change. But I also want people to look at cooking and health and wellness as fun. A lot of people think, oh, you're plant-based, you only eat salads. The possibilities are endless, and I want them to know that you can do it together. You have a support system in your community, and we can make it fun.
Kenzie?
So who I was before and currently, I am still a therapist. So I started off in ministry. I'm ordained clergy. And so I was in ministry for 3 years and then realized that the one-on-one pastoral counseling was more my jam. And so I went back and became a therapist. And I've been a therapist for over a decade now. And Restore Clergy really came out of the pandemic, but it was something that I was seeing with my clergy clients prior to the pandemic. The pandemic just really exacerbated the situation of burnout among clergy, and looking at the issue of diminishing resources in our individual churches means there's fewer paid staff in a lot of instances. And so a lot more, a clergy has to wear a lot more hats, and that can be really stressful. And it can really make people think that they're not good at ministry because like maybe their giftedness is in one area, but to be successful, you have to kind of wear all these hats, and there's a lot of expectation. And so I think there's a lot of research around. There are, I think it was 2 out of 5 or 3 out of 5 ministers were thinking about quitting in 2021. And so those are really high numbers. And so Restore Clergy came out of that as a year-long program that can walk alongside with clergy and create a cohort experience where they have a safe space to share some of the struggles and also learn about themselves, what may be creating this stress and what are different ways to deal with that. And so that is my bold vision and what I'm moving forward with Restore Clergy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Reverend Whitney Marie, and I'm the Executive Director for Come As You Are Collective. But before that, I had a lot of different roles, and one of them was a stay-at-home mom. And as a stay-at-home mom, I realized that once my kid was getting older, I needed something to do. And so I was in this space where I was looking to use my degree as a seminarian. As you know, I was ordained in the Christian Church Disciples of Christ, went to seminary, and then after seminary, I got married, and then I became a stay-at-home mom. And so I remember my mom being like, why did we spend all this money on all this school if you were going to stay at home? And I was able to lean into that desire to be a mom and all of those things. But then I also leaned into, what else do I want? And so also after being a stay-at-home mom, I tapped into being a chaplain. And so in my work as a chaplain, I got to connect with people in so many different ways, connect with people in celebration and in mourning. And the whole spectrum of connecting with people, I realized it was only in the container of the hospital. So after they got discharged, I was done. They no longer needed my services because after they left that building, I could no longer assist them. And so that's where spiritual direction came into play. And so Come As You Are Collective, we fill the void of providing accessible, affirming, and affordable mental health and spiritual care services. And the spiritual care services component started when I realized that people need help and care outside of the hospital space. And so for me, I look at spiritual direction as a continuation, not saying you got to start in the hospital, but just know that that support of spiritual care and love is there that can help answer big questions in these moments that hospital stays, they can bring up like, what am I doing? What am I doing with my life? What is my purpose? What are the things that I'm going to do for my family? What's my legacy? What is the will that God has for my life? All of those questions come up bedside. But once we start diving in and they're discharged, they no longer had a conversation partner. And so I wanted to fill that gap and provide a conversation partner that would extend beyond the halls and the walls of the hospital. And when it came to mental health services, about 12 years ago, my little sister, who identifies as a Black queer woman, called my phone and was in a manic state. She didn't know where to go, where to call. And she couldn't call her grandma, unfortunately, because it was, God is not in that. God, just pray it away. It'll go away. And she prayed, but it didn't go away. And so she called me. And so I will say, who is that person that someone can call when they feel like they can't call anyone? And so that's where the mental health piece came in with Come As You Are Collective, recognizing that people who identify as LGBTQ plus and BIPOC have a harder time finding the intentional care around mental health services. And so that's where Come As You Are Collective came to bring in the spiritual direction and mental health services and said, hey, let's do this. And I have motion sensor lights, so I've got to wave my arms so my lights come back on. So I will pass it to the next person.
Evening. Who was I before social entrepreneurship? And I like to believe many of the roles that I play is a sum of who I am. I'm a faith leader, anti-racist activist. I'm a womanist practitioner. I've served in the church and also in academic spaces. But at the core of who I am, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, and I'm that auntie. I am that auntie. If you know me well, you know that I ride hard for my niece and nephews. And 2019, I lost one of my nephews, Christopher Isaac Moran, to gun violence. And if you're not aware, gun violence is the leading cause of death of children in this country, and disproportionately is impacting Black families, Black communities all over this country. And I did not know that I would be one of the families that it impacted. And so who I was, a grieving family member, a grieving person who lost someone due to gun violence. I was and am a statistic. Who I am today is a wounded healer. And I chose to take my pain and turn it into purpose. And so we started the Co-Conspirator Institute in honor of my nephew to do the work of building community through creating space to reflect, to grieve, to heal, and to be transformed from white supremacy culture. We believe that white supremacy culture is at the root of gun violence. And what we want to change, the narrative we want to change, is that we believe that white people can be transformed, that Black communities can be healed, and collectively we can build beloved community. And we start at the Co-Conspirator Institute by caring for the mothers. So at the core of what we do, we offer grief retreats for Black mothers who's lost their children due to gun violence. And so my bold vision in this work is that we create space for Black mothers to grieve and to be transformed, all while creating space for all those who seek to be a co-conspirator, so that collectively we're building beloved community. Thank you.
Thank you all. Just want to make space for those bold visions to sit into your living room spaces, wherever you're watching. Allow those bold visions to just wash over you, because maybe you too are thinking about some bold visions, and these words become inspiration to you of what's possible. But I recognize that behind every bold vision is a bold vision. So I want to ask this question to both Sharizna and Kenzie. And that question is, who has had a bold vision that has inspired you?
I guess I'll go ahead and go first. For me, a lot of it is a mentor that I had when I was starting out in ministry. And just the idea of, I really got involved in ministry through my local Disciple Student Fellowship Association at the university that I went to. And her vision for that was a place where we could just come together and, we had left our youth group, and there's some loss that comes along with that, going from high school to college, and being in a place and finding a new community was really impactful for me. And having that small safe space, because I was at a very large university. And so her vision for that was just, it's really impacted me in my ministry and moving forward, and thinking about how smaller groups can really provide a lot of safety in a lot of ways for people to be who they are and talk about the things that they're really struggling with. So that has definitely impacted my ministry and the idea of Restore.
Great question. I paused because there's so many who I'm fortunate to be surrounded with, but I'll share Leslie, attorney Kathy Leslie, who I was on the phone with today, has a bold vision to change the community here in Nashville by buying property in our community to build restaurants, to build supermarkets, to build hotels, to transform our community before somebody else comes and do it for us. And so just being in her presence helps me to believe that I can do more. I can do something and do more in terms of participating in the kind of world and community that I want to live in and I want to leave for my children.
Amen. I mean, I agree with Darnell's sentiment that bold visions catch bold visions. And I know that each time we have the honor of gathering our cohort members, it's just such a fulfilling opportunity and experience just for me to bear witness to the work that y'all are doing and the boldness of that work. And that's me, tangentially. And so I want to invite at least three of you, Whitney Marie, if you're okay with starting us off, I would like to invite you to the question of what or how has MBA Sent cohort strengthened your bold vision?
Well, no, I'm just kidding. I would say having the in-person meetings, like legitimately, tangibly touching someone's hands and them saying like, Whitney, it's okay. It's okay not to be okay. Like whatever it was. And I mean, like whether it's like co-working spaces, eating out, it was legitimately the community. It was honestly having space to be human and not just a social entrepreneur, where I could talk about like, Ashley, how's the baby? Or, Darnell, that Airbnb, like we got to get there, right? Or Kenzie, you and I have got to link up when we get to California, in Charisma, we're going to have, our girl time. Like whatever the case was, we got to be human as well as be social entrepreneurs. And I think that balance was the piece that really strengthened my vision, because my whole premise is collective care. It is, you do not have to do this by yourself. And what Sent showed me in all its ways, whether it was virtual or in person, or even when we're on the Slack, or not Slack, but we're on the WhatsApp channel, like connecting, it was, you ain't by yourself. And if you feel like you are, let somebody know so that you aren't anymore, right? It felt like a buddy system. I mean, I, had moments where I was like, you know what, Ashley, this ain't for me. I don't want to do this no more. This isn't it. And then she's like, okay, hold my hand, call me, text me, what we doing, right? And so I find that the Sent cohort, the cohort piece, is the piece that makes this remarkable, makes Kaya stand stronger. Because again, I got to lean into not doing the work by myself, because I started off as a solopreneur, right? We're just doing this by ourselves at first. It was a great idea up here. And then Sent was like, okay, now go put some feet on it. And when I would get scared to put some feet on my work, I would have, Lashina or, someone else within our cohort be like, what about this? Like, it's okay to be scared and push send on that email. It's okay to be scared and do the work. And it's okay to pause and watch me do my work, and then you get back to yours, right? And so that community, that collective care was something that I thank you for. I continue to be in awe of, and I'm still using it. Like legit. I mean, you should see the WhatsApp text messages to be like, look, somebody help me. I'm over here tweaking. Like, so the humanity of it all was something that truly strengthened me, which then got to strengthen my vision. So I got to lean into the work of not doing it alone. So then I can actually do the work and not do it alone, right?
I'll say how the Scent cohort has strengthened me is it's beyond social entrepreneurship. It's beyond plants on plates. It has strengthened me as a person, has gotten me out of my shell. It has developed skills within me. I'm speaking, I'm here right now in front of you all. So that's just the biggest blessing, is getting me from behind the camera, behind the scenes, and really talking about plants on plates, talking about my vision, my ideas, the things that I'm passionate about. And it's giving me a village, a safe space where I'm not weird, or my ideas aren't outrageous, or they're not frowned upon. It's a space where they agree, they can help me, they give me plenty of resources, they pour into me. It's giving me a place where if I need something, I can call Ashley, Darnell, any of the cohort members. They're there for me, we can talk. They lean in on me, I lean in on them. So the biggest takeaway is this just has built me up as a person. And I'm only as strong, Plants on Plates is only as strong as I can be. So the stronger I get, the better my business will be. So truly grateful for this experience.
Charisma, can you round us out on this question?
It has been a godsend, seriously. I echo both Whit and Jasmine in that entering into social entrepreneurship can be a very lonely and scary experience and journey. And there has been many days where I woke up doubting myself, many days questioning whether I'm doing the right thing, even though I heard God clearly. There's been many days where I just had an emotional breakdown. And to have the community, Darnell has gotten many of my frantic calls and text messages. So has Ashley. And to have a non-anxious presence and someone who has confidence in me when I don't, has been healing for this journey. Social entrepreneurship is a form of trauma, y'all. Because it's an interruption to a norm. It is the yes to the road less traveled. And without support, without coaching, without a community, I just don't know if I'd have made it here. So SIT has been that and so much more. The many ways that SIT has supported us, whether it's human support or the resources, the level, the many information. I mean, I don't feel like I'm not without, because the SIT program has provided answered questions that I didn't even know I had. The resources, there was a day when I was just having a horrible day, and Darnell just changed it by saying, and here's what we're going to do. And they provided financial support for stuff that I needed, because it's expensive to start a nonprofit. It is trauma, y'all. It is expensive to start, and just to be able to have the kind of resources and support in community has truly been a balm in Gilead.
Brings my heart joy to hear that. And I also recognize, from some of the comments people have made on Facebook Live and on YouTube, it's like, wow, these people have bold visions. This is amazing work. And it is. In what you just said, Shrizna, about you don't even know the resources that you don't know what you're going to get yourself into. You don't know what you don't know. So my question to y'all is, our viewers might have this assumption that y'all already knew what you were doing. You already had all the answers. Maybe you had some kind of business background, something like that, and you were just very comfortable with this. So this was a natural and easy transition into this world of social entrepreneurship. And so the question is, what was your level of knowledge when you first launched, when you started dipping your toe into this? And then how did you start with that level of knowledge?
I will say my level of knowledge in the business aspect was there. My partner and his mother had limitless amount of resources, classes, mentorship, guidance to help me get started. He made my logo for me that I'm still currently using. But when I shifted to the nonprofit world, that was a whole new ball game for me. So it was like everything that I thought I knew on the for-profit side of things, I had to relearn and add to, because at least I had some knowledge. So that was really helpful. But the nonprofit world was a whole new game for me. But I am grateful to have some knowledge, like how to build a website, logo, marketing, those things were helpful. And then my communications background also added to that. So, but Scent definitely got me together on the non-for-profit.
I'll say in my case, I had my own small business as a private practice therapist, but starting up a nonprofit organization is like a whole nother thing. And really what it helped me realize is how little I knew and how poorly I was running my business. And so, just having the support, it really helped me think about best practices and how can we start that off from the beginning. Another thing that was super helpful is like the importance of your board and having people that get the vision and will be there and support you and want to work with you. That has been huge in not feeling alone. The Scent seminar and the cohort's been amazing with that. But then from that, just the importance of having a board that's going to continue with me and walk along with me has been huge. And so that was a real game changer as far as deciding to make this idea a nonprofit and really getting that up and going. And I probably would not have done this as a nonprofit had I not been involved with the Scent seminar. I would have tried to do it, out of my private practice. But I think it's such a richer opportunity, and as a nonprofit, having people partner with me in this. And I'm really excited to see what comes from that and how it evolves from, my idea. And then you bring all these other people in and it's like, oh, that's an amazing idea. I'm so glad you're here with me, so that's been really fantastic for me.
Appreciate you all kind of naming how you came into this journey, because again, people can't assume that you came in already suited and booted for this particular journey ahead. So I'm curious about the question around in entrepreneurship. Sometimes we want to be perfect, right? Perfectionism cripples us from taking the next step because we want to have everything together. But it's important as entrepreneurs that you recognize if we're going to fail, we need to fail quickly. That's how we get the wisdom, right? So if you could maybe tell a story of how maybe there's something you wish you would have known before you got into this work. Perhaps now you lived into something, a new reality, a new learning that now is like, if I would have known this, that's helpful. But again, it's good that you learn it fast so that you can then apply it and move forward. But somebody who may be listening may need to hear the wisdom that you have because of the steps that you've taken. And I'll start with Whitney, maybe.
I mean, that is Kenzie's question, but I'm gonna let it ride. So one of the biggest pieces of the biggest advice I got was fall in love with the problem, not your solution. And so for me, when I realized that my solution can shift based off of how to tackle this problem, that's when I realized that I was like, okay, I don't have to be perfect because this can shift, this can change, and this can do all types of things. And so what do I mean by that? So my problem is that there's not adequate, affirming, accessible, or affordable mental health services and spiritual care services for the BIPOC and LGBTQ communities, and particularly at the intersection. That's my problem. And so this was my, like what I have now was not my original solution. My original solution, who knows, that is on some piece of paper, on somewhere in some diagram that I've tucked away because I'm not doing it anymore. But there was a lot of brainstorming, thought processes, like, how do I tackle this? Is it only the spiritual care? Is it the mental health? I'm not a marriage and family therapist at all, but I did study, marriage and family therapy. I took classes, but I don't have a degree in it. And so I was like, well, if I am not the therapist, then I can't offer therapy. Well, that's not fair, right? And so I had to step back and step out of my own way, because I felt like who better than me, right? Well, I know a lot more people better than me to do this work in the mental health field. And so that's when I was like, you know what? Instead of trying to be a mental health therapist, a spiritual director, the executive director, the marketing person, the this, I said, Whitney, let's focus on spiritual direction. And that's the piece that I can tackle. And then I started tapping my resources from seminary, who had a counseling center. And I started tapping into those minds. And so one that comes to mind is Reverend Lee Ivy from Indianapolis. He is a Black male in mental health. And I picked up the phone and said, hey, this is not my area of expertise. It's yours. Help me. And we are now creating something that has blown my mind, because I got out of my own way of trying to make it perfect, trying to be perfect and trying to be everything for everyone. But when I said, you know what, Lee, you got it. I need you to take that piece. How would you craft and curate this? And now we have a wellness coordinator who their specific job is to take care of the practitioners, spiritual directors, and mental health therapists. I never thought of that part. But it's letting go and letting others come in on my vision that I had to learn to do, because I can't do this by myself. But as someone who likes to control things, it was really hard to let go. And so for me, it was nice to be able to tap into the expertise of the community that I already had. I went to seminary with him. That was a phone call, and it was an immediate yes. It wasn't, I didn't have to beg or any of that stuff. It was, hey, I've got this vision. What you think? Hey, I'm down. And so I think for me, I had to really tap into what did it mean to let go, not have it all be me, but then tap into the community that I'd already created. So for me, that is a long answer to not being perfect and leaning into there are other people who can do this work better. And so I'm going to tap them.
Thank you, Whitney Marie. And that speaks to, again, the wisdom that the journey has taught you. So I would ask, perhaps the perfectionism wasn't necessarily the sole question, but it's what we wish we would have known before launching, right? And that's something that you have to kind of live into. Now, if I would have known this before, I would have probably saved some time. But again, learn that lesson quickly, and that way you can pivot and begin to go in the direction that is most fruitful. So same question of Jasmine, what do you wish you would have known before you launched your social enterprise?
I wish I would have known to have some type of support to help. So I'm not a one-woman show, even a volunteer, an intern, someone who's just willing and wanting to help me, to know that I didn't have to do everything on my own in the beginning. And also even the financial piece, it's going to come with funding. You're going to have to spend some money, but to keep your website running, if you want marketing done, to keep your business active, all those things, your initial filing fees, all those things cost. And to just even maybe have a tentative or some type of budgeting to know, okay, I'll need around about this money. So maybe I could have did some crowdfunding, or I wish I would have known how to crowdfund before I started. But I learned, all these things over the past year. So definitely financial is the biggest piece, and having a team or some sort of support, something I wish I would have known before.
Well, some of us might, what they say, hindsight is 20/20. You look back and you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But sometimes we look back and we realize that we had some assumptions about things. And so to Kinsey and Shirizna, I might ask kind of a follow-up of what's an assumption about social entrepreneurship that since launching and in the past however many months, 8 months, since starting in the cohort, what's an assumption that you've kind of challenged or has been challenged now that you've been doing this work?
I think my answer is related to the question from before in terms of something I wish I'd known. Here's the assumption. My assumption was, you have it all together and you know what you're doing. Y'all, I might look good, but I'm telling you every day, I'm telling you, I am learning as I go. Don't get it, like I'm literally still learning as I go. And I think I'll be learning as I go. There's always something new to learn. So the assumption for me was folks out here doing this, looking good, and they know what they're doing. And I'm telling you, we learning as we go. And there's just so much that I do not know. And there's so much that I do know, and the skills are transferable, and I'm grateful for that. And I've leaned on that and depended on that in many ways and want to celebrate that. And so want to acknowledge and also share that you bring so much already. There's so much, and they're transferable in many ways. But to answer that question, I simply just thought that you had it together, and that ain't true. Everybody up in here, we learning as we go, I promise you.
Speak to yourself. No, I'm just kidding.
I think I'll just add to that, very much so just learning as we go. But I think what was the assumption that I had going into it is that we were all kind of starting from the same place, like as far as being established. But it was really fascinating to me, especially at like the first meeting, just seeing where everybody was. Like some people really did just completely have an idea. And then other cohort members really had like some structure in place and already had like some employees, that kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, I mean, we're all over the map here, which, it was comforting because it allowed me to just rest in where I was and knowing that like, we're going to do this together. We have support and we can figure it out, and that's okay. Like, it doesn't have to be a certain way to make an impact. Our bold visions can make impact as they are evolving and as they are being birthed, really, and in coming into creation. So it's been exciting to walk along with other cohort members and kind of see where they are and hear how it's evolved, and just be able to talk about it, because it is a really unique experience, starting a nonprofit and a social enterprise that like the goal is to make an impact, and there's so much diversity too of like what our focus is. And so I've gotten a lot of good ideas just hearing what other people are doing.
Thank you all for sharing. And if you haven't already watched the virtual recordings of our cohort members, we invite you to YouTube. If you register, to please check those out. They were released this week. Each one of them did an amazing job leading virtual workshops that we asked that you would watch as your time permits. So kind of focusing on some of the content that was spoken about in their presentations, I want to ask Jasmine, who kind of talks about her experience as a cohort member and peer support, to answer the question, why is peer support specifically one of the why is peer support specifically with other entrepreneurs important, and what do you do to have peer support after the season has been fulfilled?
I definitely feel like with me, like I said, running this by myself right now, the peer support has just been helpful. Just if I have any questions, if I just need support, if I need to pick up on and call, ask questions on things that I might not know or just need a little bit of guidance on, since I am alone sometimes, it, like someone said, it does get lonely. So I have those peers I can lean in on. And when I looked at the question and it talked about seasons and what do you do when it ends, seasons don't end, they change. So sometimes what we're working on in the fall is going to be different. It's going to shift in the wintertime. So I don't think that that season ends. We just grow and evolve together, and how we support each other will look different.
I'm going to stay with this theme of loneliness, isolation, peer support, all that. And so I'm going to tap Whitney Marie here, because it is, central to your mission. But we've already named this a number of times. We say a lot of times in social entrepreneurship that one of the 10 commandments is you do not want to do this work alone, or at least you want to be intentional about cultivating a sense of community and peer support. And so my question is, what do you do? In your workshop, you talked about having someone who can push you, who can play, and who can pray, P-R-A-Y, alongside you. And so what do you do if you don't have someone, or you don't have that community? What are your thoughts on where to start with that?
Well, one, you can come as you are collective for spiritual direction, and we can have that conversation about who are your conversation partners. That's one aspect of spiritual direction, where we can identify and have conversations as to who are the people that are in your circle, or who are the people that I can, in my network, recommend to your circle. I know I went to this past weekend, I went to it was a fun retreat, and it was called the Black Lesbians United Retreat. And when I went there, I met so many different people, and I hosted a workshop where it was talking about collective care. And I had someone who was asking so many different questions that was beyond outside of my scope. And I was feeling some type of way that I couldn't answer those questions. And I also pushed me aside, and I realized that I wasn't the person, but I had just met someone when I was doing field day at that retreat who was saying, hey, I am this and I can do that. And I was like, I know someone who you should talk to. And so I bring that story up because the young lady in my workshop did not have a prayer partner, a push partner, and a play partner. She was like, that's why I'm here, because I don't have nobody. And so I was like, okay, well, let me show you to somebody. And so if anything, it's okay. Because I'm telling you, my team got established when I said yes to Scent. I have a prayer partner, a play partner, and a push partner. And 2 out of the 3 are Scent people. So mine just got started. So don't feel like you behind the game and trying to find the people who you can lean on in this work. I have people who, clearly I had just met them last year. And I was like, yep, I need you and I need you. And so recognizing that you may have only a play partner right now, somebody who is like, hey, I will play and remind you what it is to have fun, and they don't play about you. So it's nice to have somebody in your corner and be like, I got 1 out of the 3. Well, then ask your one, who do you know me, who can truly pray for me and not pray on me? Who do you know who can push me, but don't piss me off too much, right? Let's get real. And so it's tapping into our networks and our networks. And so if you do not have any of the 3, then come see me, because then we can have a conversation as to who I can connect you with, who we can, have the conversation around who is going to be your collective care team. And you can start with me. You can add me down.
Yeah, that's good. As we think about caring for people and being there for people and serving people, and that's the work that these good people do each day, walking alongside folks and serving the people that they've been called to serve. I want to ask Sharizna a question. So when you're doing this work of, doing good, the work that God has called you to do, serving people, doing this good and sacred work, but feel guilty perhaps about asking others to pay for the goods and services that your organization may be offering? How do you work past that mental hangup around, does good work have to be always free work, and work that means you have to never ask people to give, to support the work that you're doing?
I love this question. Thank you for this question, because I came in with this hang up. I read an article a couple of weeks ago that said Beyonce has changed the economy because of her tour. And so we are willing to pay hundreds and almost thousands of dollars to go see Beyonce for about 2 hours for entertainment. And yesterday I saw she celebrated her birthday, and I saw her response to the crowd that came to the concert. And one of the things she said that really moved me, she said, "Thank you, God. Thank you, God." And what, for me, every time I see Beyonce, I am clear, and she reminds me that her gifts come from God. Her vision she had comes from God. And so the same God that gives Beyonce a gift, a talent to offer into the world is the same God that whispered in my ear and said, "I give you a gift and give you talents to go and offer something to the world." And so if we're willing to pay entertainment to go see Beyonce, why would we hesitate to pay for a service that perhaps can help you grow spiritually, mentally, physically, socially, or whatever the services we provide? Jasmine, who is teaching people how to eat healthy and to live a better life, all right? Kinsey, who's helping clergy folks. Clergy is one of the number one in the fields that are leaving because of the amount of stress. Why would we hesitate to pay for the services that the same God that whispered in Beyonce's ear has whispered in our ear and has given us something to offer into the world? So I had to see the same God that has positioned Beyonce is the same God that's positioned me. And if she can sell thousands of dollars of ticket, well, come on, I can ask for some support so that moms can get space to heal and grieve the loss of their child.
I got one question for Kinsey, but before I do, like, anyone else want to hop on that? Because I know, even though this is like, off our script here, that is probably one of the primary mental hangups that we witness in each of our cohort members each year is like, oh, I feel called to do this holy work, but I don't want to make people pay, or I don't want to ask for money. And, I know in previous Sent seminars a couple of years ago, we talked about it's not money itself isn't evil. We want to learn how we can operate in God's economy and how we can use resources and money in ways that are going to strengthen and impact people for good. So yeah, any other experiences that y'all can speak to about how you get past this hang up of asking for funds?
If I would like to speak to that, with Come As You Are Collective, what we've done is we've actually flipped this idea of capital on its head. And allowed people to access our services who don't actually have it. And so we've included a barter to pay what you can option. And what I've noticed is that when you give people a spectrum of what they can pay, the price that I actually set, some will go above it, and then some, which will offset the pricing when someone said, "Hey, I can do your social media for a month if you give me, 3 sessions of spiritual direction." And so I find that what I've been able to do is, as I like build people to be able to see themselves more than money, and recognize that, of course, money pays the bill. You know, we need money to keep the lights on, and recognizing that that isn't the whole conversation. What is it that I need? Do I necessarily need money to get this new computer, or do I tap into my network and say, hey, we need a new computer? And then my network has been like, well, guess what? You want Apple or you want this? And I'm like, which size do I want? Right? Like, so there was no money exchange, but I got what I needed. And so I think for me coming into this, I definitely had a hang up, which I'm working with my therapist on, around money and asking for it. But I also recognize that there's another way to get needs met, that capital doesn't have to be a part of that conversation. And so in bringing that around, it allows for my services to be more accessible. And then it also allows for creativity around, how do I get the things that I need and how do I ask for them from the networks that I have?
Good wisdom. Okay, Kinsey. So this question, you know, within MBA, we've been intentional the past few years, especially around kind of dissecting white supremacy culture. And one of the things that comes up often that is a characteristic of white supremacy is this notion of perfectionism, that we have to be perfect. You know, we can't show any weakness, stuff like that. And that's when we struggle with that, that's just an internalization of the reality that we operate in this culture that is, you know, shaped by white supremacy. And so, you know, it takes a lot of intention to kind of dismantle that and resist it. And so my question to you is, how have you tried to dismantle, how has perfectionism impacted your entrepreneurial process? What does it look like for you to unpack that and kind of, you know, forge a new way?
I love that question. And I love the way that you framed it too, and thinking about white supremacy as one of the lenses that all of us see the world through in a lot of ways, just being in the United States and how pervasive that is, and kind of our society. And so I have two thoughts around that. One is, a big thing that Restore does is help people to identify what those lenses are, so that we can become aware of them. And then we can choose, do I still believe that? Do I still want to act out of that? And if I don't, what are my options? Or how can I shift it so that it lives into the values that I claim to have? You know, how can I actually live into that? And so thinking about perfectionism, a big piece of that really held me back, because I had this idea of what it should be and what I needed to be before I could do this. And so a big piece of this is like, well, we're just going to put it out there and see what happens. And this idea of a mentor that I had really talked about gathering data. So you do things, you gather more data, and then you adjust from there. And so a big part of this, if it was going to be perfect, it would never get off the ground, because it's definitely not perfect. Building a social enterprise is messy. It can be really clunky and awkward. And so just having that idea of being messy is part of the process. And actually a lot of beauty can come out of that if we're not so tied up in, you know, like Whitney was talking about earlier, like having this specific vision. If we can kind of stay with what is the, what's the purpose? What am I trying to do, rather than how I'm going to do it, then a lot of really beautiful things can come out of that. And allowing the spirit to move through that too, and being okay with, I don't know, God, like, I'm putting this out there for you and I'm hoping you'll do something with it, because it's like, I feel this urge and this passion for this, but I have no idea how we're going to do this. It's like, here we go. And so trying to let go of some of that perfectionism. And another thing with that is if it doesn't turn out the way that I think it's supposed to, not making that about me and not making that mean that I've messed up and I'm a failure, but rather maybe we just need to make some tweaks. And what did we learn from this? So I think that's a big piece of it as well, as we do this, because these are our babies and we're passionate about these visions. If we've hit stumbling blocks along the way, try not to internalize that as I'm wrong, I shouldn't be doing this, but rather, okay, all right, let's back up a little bit. Let's get everybody together and let's have a conversation, because I need some support and I need some encouragement right now.
I want to jump on this question because it's a very important question. And I actually want to put on my, well, I always have my Reverend Pastor hat on to say this. If it's perfect, then you don't need God. If it's perfect, then you lose the beautiful journey of the divine intervening on your behalf. If it's perfect, then it means you're done. I think perfection is a tool of white supremacy, but it's also against our faith as people of the table, one who believes that God intervenes on our behalf. One of the greatest things I've learned in this journey as a social entrepreneur, that every time it was imperfected. Every time I experience imperfection, I also saw and experienced God. And so I am always open at this place in terms of my transformation. I'm always looking for the surprise, the holy surprise in
No, we can't lose that moment. The holy surprise. We'll give her a moment to come back, but in the meantime,
imperfection.
She's going still, and we're missing it. Okay, we lost the holy surprise, and then you paused out. Do you want to remember what you said after holy surprise?
Wow, did you lose me?
You lost holy surprise, and it was gone.
Darnell, I went to the
surprise. That was a surprise right there.
Holy surprise. See, it ain't perfect. It ain't perfect. I don't remember what I said, but my point is this. If it's perfect, that means your job is done. I have learned to bring fear and failure with me along the way. Because if I'm in fear and failure, that means God and the angels are with me somewhere along the way. And so I'm constantly looking for the holy intervention of God in my imperfections.
Amen. As we move toward the close of our time together, we're going to have one more question for our cohort members that we'll ask everybody to respond to. We ask those who are listening via YouTube or Facebook to place in the chat perhaps a question for one of the panelists that you want to pose, so have Q&A time. We recognize that as entrepreneurs, you're doing this important and great work, and you're having goals, and most of you all are also working other vocations simultaneously. What do you do when you're starting a social enterprise and life happens, those unexpected moments? How do you navigate life happening while also trying to be on a runway of starting an enterprise? I'll invite Jasmine to go first, and Kenzie.
Life is going to happen, and that business is going to be there, but you have to put you first in self-care. So you have to get yourself in order for your business to thrive and be in the place where it can be successful. So it's okay. You can pause. And I know the perfection in us wants to keep pushing through, but you don't want burnout. You don't want exhaustion. So give yourself a timeline on when you think you'll be able to make that priority again for your business, but make sure to just always put you first, because without you, there is no business. So what's the point of burning yourself out and making yourself sick or whatever is going on with life that's happening? It's going to be okay. So put that business to the side, take that time for yourself to make sure you're 100%, to give 100% and pour back into your business.
And I'll just add to that. I think that's great wisdom, working with clergy that burn out, reminding myself of that as well. I have 3 kids, and literally right before this meeting, my youngest was crawling to get herself a snack, and she fell and has a huge bruise right here on her arm. And it's one of those moments of like, are you okay enough for me to do this? It's like one of those moments of like, where do I need to be? What do I need to do? How am I going to punt? Like right here in this moment, quick decision. And thankfully, her father came home and all was well. Like, again, the community helped me out. I'm not alone in this. But I think, just reiterating that of we definitely have to take care of ourselves, but having those partnerships around us too is huge, because that really helps us, physically deal with stuff, but then emotionally deal with when life happens. And it's like, I feel like I'm torn, and I feel like I'm in all different places, and I feel like I'm not doing well enough. And having a conversation can really make a huge difference around that. So the Scent cohort, and many times Ashley and Darnell have been on the other side of that of like, it's all right. We're all right. We can do this. Like, have you thought about this? And I was like, no, thank you. That's a great suggestion. I'm going to do that. And I already feel better. So yeah, that's really helpful when life happens.
Whitney Marie, Sharizna.
Yeah, to echo my colleagues here, life is going to happen. There is no perfect time to start. And life is there's always something that's going to happen. I think what I love about this journey is I get to have the privilege to create an organization, build a culture that eliminates the hustle and busy mentality, eliminate perfectionism and this notion that we gotta be always working, business, beating deadlines and not be human. And so I think one of the things about being a social entrepreneur for me is to build something that I never experienced in the workplace. And that is to incorporate those moments when life happens, because life is going to life. Right. But I've also learned, so wanting to create something different and new has been inspiration for me. Around because life happens. But I also think personally for me, losing my nephew, he was 20 at the tender age of 20. I'm experiencing life differently. It's a little bit more tender for me. So having the privilege to enjoy life and to make room for family and friends, to make room for myself, and to listen to my body when I'm tired, when it's enough. Those are very important for me in this season. It's part of my care. It's part of my healing, is to do this thing called life while I build the social, this nonprofit, this organization that I'm building, and not do it around it, do it in it, do it while I'm building, right? Because life is going to life. But it goes back to, again, recognizing that I don't do this alone. I'm not alone. The same God that whispered in my ear is the same God that walks alongside me. I ain't never prayed so much in my life. I've never meditated so much in my life. And so I cannot do this and life absence of the Holy Spirit, absence the presence of God, absence of my angels. This is not work that you do alone. This is work you do in community. And part of my community are the host of angels that walk alongside me. Part of my community is the Holy Spirit. Part of my community is God, God's self. And I acknowledge all of those things in the midst of life.
Well, amen and amen. To follow that, one of the things that I'll say is to tap back into what I'll be speaking about is having a play partner. Like, what does it mean to surround yourself with someone or someones who can get you out of the muck and mire in those moments and say, hey, let's go rollerblading. Like, nope, we are about to go out and put on a face and go see what happens, right? It's like being able to have someone who, and I'll speak on it in my presentation, but to have a play partner is not someone who can just have fun, but someone who doesn't play about you as well. And so that person is the person who is like, okay, life is happening real hard for you. I need you to pause. I need you to come here. I need you to come with me. And so there's levels to having that person in your corner. And so I invite you to tap into that person as you are navigating social entrepreneurship, because life will happen. And it'll happen right when you're about to push sand on something and you think you're about to like launch something, and then life says, that ain't happening. But then when do you get to like tap in and say, okay, this isn't happening how I wanted it to. And I got to get up and go somewhere else. I got to get up and go. I'm a rollerblader. So I get up and I'm in Long Beach. So I get to go to the marina and skate by the water. I also get to listen to audiobooks. I also get to play video games. Spiral is my jam on PlayStation, right? It's like, what are those moments and things that I get to incorporate when life does all the lifing? And then I also wanted to add that ball out in your shower. Those are the best ways to not have to need tissue because you already wet. But literally cry. Allow yourself to release, because a lot of things happen and it's pent up, or we wait for that event to happen, or we wait for an escape to come our way. But be able to feel in the moments, in the small moments. And for me, it was in the shower. It's like, I'm like a mermaid. I'm just crying, I'm just like getting it out. But then I'm able to then go to the next thing and not say like, hey, I got to feel my feelings. I still get to feel my feelings, and I don't get to have it pent up. So in short, I would say tap into your play partner, have some fun, escape. It's okay to get away from whatever it is. And then also release as well. And if that's tears for you, or working out, running, whatever it is, body movement, but be able to let yourself release whatever that is that you're holding.
Thank you all. There's a question in the chat asking, you want to share that question from one of our other cohort members, Sophia?
Shout out to Sophia. This is a deep question. Not surprised that she is the author behind this. So this is to each of you. In what ways do you envision the landscape of your social enterprise evolving in the coming years? That's like a question in and of itself. And what opportunities do you see for innovation and growth? Yeah. Take a second to digest it. Kinsey, I'll invite you first, though, when you're ready.
This question is hard for me because this is something that I do. I jump ahead, like to step 26, and I'm on step 2. And I really need to focus on step 2. But I love, like, it's going back and forth between that excitement and that vision and that inspiration for the future, and like not letting it pull us too far ahead to where we're missing the steps along the way. I really think about mine, I'm just working with clergy, but I think that this program could be beneficial for anyone in the helping field. And I would love to do this with, teachers, doctors, nurses, make it interfaith, like there's all sorts of, even, clergy spouses and stuff like that, like thinking about all the different people that serve and give of themselves to make the world a better place. And if they have a better understanding of where that passion and where that drive comes from, then hopefully they can do it in a more sustainable way. So they're not just being faithful, but it's also sustainable. And we talked a lot about that burnout, and we are definitely as social entrepreneurs at risk of that if we don't slow down and take each step as we go. And so, yeah, I think about that as the evolution, and innovation and growth. I'm just really excited to see what comes of this. And as, bringing other people in, what ideas and, giftedness, as Charisma was talking about, like what talents and giftedness has God bestowed upon other people that could bring this vision, even farther. So I'm super excited to see what happens, but I got to slow my roll, not get too far ahead of myself.
So when I looked at the second part first, and what opportunities do you see for innovation and growth? And something that is attainable for me right now is expanding my current territory, going to the different sides of town. What I realized is I focused on the inner city community because of the food disparity, but everyone is suffering right now with the recession, with financial setbacks. So being able to even help families that you might think that are okay, but they also need that assistance. They also need that knowledge. And maybe they're a fast food grabber, but if you gave them the resources to cook and recipes to cook at home, that saves them money, and that's adding nutritional value to their household. So expanding my territories would be the first thing. And I have a full curriculum, but right now I'm only able to do a part of it. So in the coming years, I would like to do the full programming of it all, like a 8-week, 16-week session, really breaking down foods and the education and the hands-on. So in the coming years, just being able to use my full curriculum, expanding my territory, even outside of the Indiana area, because I'm currently in Indianapolis. So maybe I can fly out to a different city where another cohort member is, or just a city in need or that would like the class, and expand.
I'll jump on it. I'll try to stab. Thank you, Sophia. Hey. So we are in the process of writing curriculum. We have a framework, and writing the curriculum allows for us to build out programming. I think fortunately for me, many of the signature programs we have, I come in with. I've done already, and now I'm doing under the Co-Conspirator Institute. But what I'm looking forward to with the curriculum is being able to build out a kind of curriculum that allows for us to provide services where we charge folks, provide services to folks around what it means and what it looks like to be a co-conspirator as a lifestyle and spiritual discipline, and allow that curriculum to then guide us in terms of the next growth and innovation in terms of vision and programming for the nonprofit. I'm also looking forward to, in terms of opportunities to see innovation and growth, I'm looking forward to bringing in new thought partners, and colleagues along the way, because I don't want to build this alone. I believe in building in community. I want co-conspirators to come alongside me. So I'm looking forward to funding so that I can hire a full team so that we can begin to build out the programs that's already there, but then also create new ones so that we're constantly out in the world doing what the Lord called us to do.
To answer this question, I would say I would not be in the executive director position for one. I want to organize myself out of this job because I really find that my passion is in the spiritual direction component and doing the workshops and literally being hands-on. With that said, I would love for Come As You Are Collective to add an adolescent component. Our youth. I mean, can you imagine if you had a conversation about your spirituality and sexuality at 15? Like, what would that do for you now as the 35-year-old or 55-year-old or heck, even 21, whatever your age? And so I would love to have that mental health component and spiritual care component accessible to youth, whether that's in schools, after school programs, or however we tap into that market, but letting the youth know, like getting to the babies early. So we ain't got to keep fixing adults.
Thank you all for sharing not just this recent question, but sharing all of your wisdom and insight from all the questions we've asked this evening. I want to thank our presenters. These are the bold visions. These are the visions that MBA is able to support because people give to MBA, that we can be able to accompany and collaborate with leaders like the ones on this call and ones whose names you have not yet heard, but they are doing the work as well. And they are also living into bold visions. So we thank you for your witness and for your work. We're excited about amplifying your work, and we hope that others will be able to find you in the virtual world. They will watch your workshops, and that they will continue to connect with you and be prayerful and mindful of your work in the months and days to come. So those of you who may be watching and say, I have an idea, and maybe after hearing these real stories, real authentic stories about people's journey, maybe you want to consider applying for our 2024 SINC cohort. Currently, our application is open on our MBA Cares website. Under the, I believe, events tab, you'll find that application. The application closes October 1st, so maybe you need a few more weeks of convincing and for God to speak to your heart. But know that that application will close on October 1st, so we look forward to welcoming a new cohort at the end of this year. And this continues to build out our network of leaders that offer that peer support that we heard spoken about by Jasmine earlier, the importance of knowing that you're not in this work by yourself. Want to make sure I'm not forgetting any housekeeping items. Okay, I'm on target.
One thing that I'll say that wasn't really planned, if you are watching, joining, streaming live, but you didn't receive the recorded workshops, that's the format that we now operate in. You'll receive the pre-recorded workshops, and then on Thursdays of each week in the month of September, you'll be joined by those presenters as panelists. So you have the freedom to watch those workshops at a time that works well for you outside of those Thursday evenings. But let us know if for some reason you don't have access to them. Make sure that you're registered in MBA's social entrepreneurship website page. You can register there if you haven't already, but that'll get you access to all of those recorded workshops.
That being said, friends, may you go into your evening and be bold, trouble the waters, and change the world. Go in peace.